You're muted. There you go. You're
Oh,
muted. And we were live for like 15 seconds. You're just staring at the screen.
well, you know what? The Legends Live podcast thing went on. The you
I
don't see
saw
it,
it.
or
Yeah. No,
do you
I
see
didn't
it?
hear it. I see it. It didn't come on. I hear the music and all that stuff. I didn't see
My son
the intro.
dances to it while he's playing Madden while he hears the other side of the room there.
You know what? I want. How old's your son?
He's 7.
I want to be 7 again, dude.
So do I.
I saw a thing on Facebook, a meme where it's not a meme, but it's like a thing. You have two pills. The blue pill is you could be 7 with all the knowledge you've accumulated in life, and then the red pill is $10 million, and it's like blue. I want to be 7 and be all the experience of my life, but all I want to give a crap about is Madden, and if I lose, I get upset. Like I get upset now about like serious life adult stuff. And I don't want to do that anymore. It's like I want to be a kid again. Christmas makes you want that too. I don't have kids, but you must see him opening
Oh,
presents and stuff, and you're
oh,
like, I wish I was that age again. You know?
oh yeah. If you had the knowledge and none of the responsibility at that point, you might make 10 million by the time you're 20 years old anyway,
Oh yeah. No,
easily.
I think. Well,
If you had the
depends
knowledge you
on
have now in
it
life,
depends on who you are. I mean, if you're an idiot, you're at 7. You know, like if you're some of the people we know that are just dumb, they're not going to make anything. They have no entrepreneurial spirit. They have no ability. But if you're smart and if you've accumulated knowledge over the years and stuff like that, me, it would be more about relationships than business. Business I can handle. But if I knew what I knew at 7, you know, like now as relationships, I would be like the king of high school, man. I would be like,
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
oh man, it would be fun. I was
You'd
not
walk
the
in the door in ninth grade, high fiving, shaking hands,
I
hugging.
would be like the
You
king
get
of the
whatever you want.
school, you know. And in ninth grade, I was not the king of the school. I was just a quiet, like whatever, not a nerd, but just one of those in betweeners, you know, not a jock, not a nerd, just like non-existent type of quiet person. I wouldn't be now. I would be completely, and it'd be horrible. I would manipulate everybody. I mean, it'd just be evil. But
It's funny because in ninth grade I was physically a man already, but was mentally, a kid. So I remember there was a girl that was a cheerleader. She was a year older than me, and a guy that was a senior was dating her friend, and the other girl wanted to date me, and they took me out to Pizza Hut. Okay, we go to Pizza Hut, and it's like a double date thing. Now the guy, one guy's a senior, I'm a freshman, I'm 14, and the two girls are sophomores, right? When I mean that I was out of my league from a mental aspect, the girl was fawning over me, and I was more worried about my breadsticks and what pizza I was eating.
yeah, that's how it is sometimes.
14, I was built like, I was already 5'10", 180 pounds, and starting on varsity as a freshman, but I didn't have a clue as to like, he would be like, yo, man, like this girl, like, she like wants you. And I'm
See,
like,
that's why you want the you know the pill to go back to 7, because at 14 you would 100% know everything about life and all that stuff, and you wouldn't give a crap about the the crappy Pizza Hut breadsticks and stuff like
I'm
that.
so-
So, but anyways, yeah, playing Madden. I always want to get back into video games too, but they become way too complex for me with the trigger buttons and all that other stuff.
yeah,
And I used to be like a Nintendo. Genesis was about the most with the ABC buttons. Once it got beyond that, PlayStation and stuff, I couldn't do it, and so it sucks. Now I'll still play like retro Tecmo Bowl if I can, but I can't play anything else. But again, that's just like fun. Your son's dancing. I am not dancing to our theme song. We are here for business. We're here to talk about the promotions, both of them, high school and portal. So you had the NUC game. You
yep.
and Coach Dale, Coach Manis. Obviously, everybody had an opportunity to talk to kids down there. So tell me how it went.
Well, it went really good. I mean, the game was great. It's fantastic. And uh, on the recruiting side, there was a lot of fantastic players, especially the young. I mean, always that's kind of always been our forte anyway, right? The younger kids. Um, but it was fantastic from that standpoint. And there's a lot of guys that Coach Manna spoke with that I think are really going to have an opportunity. They're going to get into the promo. But I think this is the time. So, what you want to be able to do is build off this, right? So you have a great performance. I saw like on social media, like it went wild, the game. I mean, just really, really went wild. Not just the view, because we live stream and everything. The viewership was really high, but not just the viewership, the after part, which I thought was the highest it's ever been, like interaction from kids, like sending me stuff. And you may have seen, like, I'm retweeting as many that tag me as possible from the game. And those kids are they already kind of understand it. And that's where the promotion comes into. They're already tagging Coach Schuman. They're reaching out to me. We want.
Tagging me too. I'm getting tagged like crazy.
Right. And those kids, and a lot of them are the younger guys. Like, we have, you may remember him. So a guy who runs our club in Texas, 7-on-7 club, the Texas Stars, is Devon
Oh,
Moore.
I mean, I
Right.
don't know him, but yeah, we follow
You
each
know
other
of
on.
him. I mean, he
Yeah.
was like, I
Yep.
think a 3-star or whatever back in the day.
Yep.
And he went and coached the event. So he coached, was one of the assistant coaches. And he brought some like kids from Texas that are like ninth graders that are, out of this world. So as Texas invariably does with them, but not a lot of times, because our game is in the Southeast, that we hadn't always got a lot of Texas guys. You know what I mean? So he
Right.
brought some of his guys, and that's the kind of the aspect. And he's trying to get them to understand how important it is, because it's such a saturated world that you've got to promote yourself. And he was in a unique situation where he went to a lot of events, did really well with that, helped get him up to a certain level. But he's trying to explain to them how it's at a whole different level now. There wasn't huddle links when he was coming out in the same way. Like he could send his film. So what's the most any coach is going to get? Is what he'll get 100 films, 200 films, maybe, and they could actually just really, in the old days, remember, they just discard the DVDs. They didn't even wait.
I did too.
So
I used to get DVDs to my house like in the hundreds,
yeah,
and I would have to discard them because I couldn't watch them all.
correct. So that was like, the guys who actually bothered to send the DVDs had an advantage, because now with huddle links, you don't have that advantage has gone away. I mean, it's one of the original beauties of huddle that everybody kind of got a chance to put their things up, but now the saturation is an issue. And now, because of that, you need a layer on top of it, which is where our promos come in, and had a ton of success for a lot of guys that haven't been recognized, both on the on the high school side, and now with the transfer side of it, right? And I'll let you talk about while I put it up for people real quick, so they can.
Yeah, so I was looking at our list of clients, for high school, and we were talking about off camera the portal, and the portal obviously. So what's occurred now is the holidays are over. The dead period's about to end. So the second wave of portal recruiting is about to occur. Bowl games are over. So a lot of coaches, what they did is the FCS portal opened in November, the FBS portal opened December 5th, and they dove in on the guys that they wanted to get, the big name guys. Denver Harris, 5-star cornerback from Texas A&M, ends up at LSU. On and on. Tony Grimes, UNC 5-star goes to Texas A&M, and all those pieces of the puzzle in the courts of quarterbacks were a big deal. Landed in spots. And then what schools did is they sort of sat back and they waited for their bowl games to occur, and to see how signing day went, and to see what positions they filled and what they didn't fill, so they could get a better assessment of their roster. So now post Christmas, the roster assessment has occurred, and now they're going to dive in, but much more carefully and much more selectively, to find these guys that they're looking for. So that's why, the promotion can make a difference. The example being Carter Lynch, defensive end linebacker from Cal, who, is in our promo. A kid like that can fall into the shuffle. I mean, he was at Cal a couple of years ago, had an injury, is fully recovered from the injury. Doesn't have a lot of college film. We've got practice film and things like that, and people are assessing him based on his high school film. But he could fall into the group of everybody else where, we'd have to do research on this kid to really find out if we want him. but he's in the promotion. We put him out on the portal feed a few times. Got like 7,000-8,000 views. You said your video of him blew up as well, and that puts him a little bit above everybody else now because the research doesn't need to be done. Yeah, you still have to look into what occurred at Cal and the injury situation, all that other stuff. But now you've seen it. You don't have to dig, and that extra step of digging, where you see a kid, there's thousands and thousands of kids in the portal. And if you assume that thousands of those kids are equal, meaning they need a home more than a home needs them, schools are not going to search. They're not going to take that extra step to go dig to find a Carter Lynch's film. But if it's in front of them, they're going to take advantage of it. So that portion of it is going to start to pick up a little bit here as the 45-day portal window is closing in late January. Signing day is in February. There's going to be a whole lot of kids throughout the spring that are going to need this promotion, especially because the next 15-day window is until the end of spring practice. And a lot of those decisions on those kids are going to be done in the months of February, March, and April, where you don't have anything you can provide people. There's no new film or anything, so you're going to need the promotion. High school-wise, I'm pretty happy with our group here. I talked to Ben Hartman. He's preferred walk-on at Oregon State. Talked to Carson Krueger, quarterback. I feel good about Carson Rauner, the 2024 Nebraska kid. He's going to get offers. His dad, I know, is nervous, as most parents are. But some of the new guys, too, that Coach Manis brought on, Kyle Mosley, the defensive tackle from Georgia.
Amari Grayson and...
Yeah, Malik Caswell,
Yep.
defensive. I mean, these are Power 5 kids. These are kids that are going to get Power 5 offers. But they probably...
They all played in the game, too. So
they're accelerating the process by joining the program, whereas sometimes they might get these offers and have to go to summer camp in June to earn them. They're going to get them before then now. So I feel good about the group we have. Zaire Daniel is going to go post-grad now. And this is a kid, he's a defensive end for Virginia, has really good film, got to us very, very late, right?
Yeah.
Really late. 2023 kid, and really scraped together everything he could get just for the promotion. So that type of kid, I feel more of an obligation to even, because I know how hard he's working on his own to, sort of get this support. And now that he's going PG, now I feel okay. 2023.
He as a D end, or is he going to go more as like a 3-4 outside linebacker?
I don't know. Most PGs, as you know, they don't have that hybrid thing.
Yeah.
I mean, most of them play a standard 4-3. I know he can stand up. I think he's going to be a hand in the dirt at the end, but they're probably going to stand him up on pass rush situations. I haven't really talked to him about where he's going or in depth about that. I just was glad I saw this note real quick that he's going PG because, he has to. He came to us so late. He's a good enough player to, at the very least, be FCS, but he came to us so late that I don't think we had a real chance to make enough of a difference for him. Now, another year, I think he's going to be fine.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. You go to myfootballcamps.com/D1, see more, and then for the transfer guys, it's myfootballcamps.com/D1-transfer. Pretty simple, pretty easy to see. And listen, our Twitters are up here. DM us if you have questions. We're glad to answer them. This is about to be the hot time, so we're all going to be getting back in. They're going to finalize their classes if there's any guys to finalize, and then they're going to move. They're moving on already to the next class, so it's time. It's time for them to get going. I saw something over there, so let me let's see if I could. You want me to delete that? I guess here. Kick this guy from the studio. Yes. Kick the guest out. Bye. All right, now you should be good. Oh, wait. No, now you're good. Wait, you're gone. You're gone. Hold on. He's gone. What happened?
I can hear you.
There you are.
Back. I don't know what happened. I think the Wi-Fi just crapped here because I just disappeared. There wasn't anything I hit. So I just think but you gave out the URLs, right?
Yeah. It's still running on the bottom too.
All right.
So But yeah, so check those out, and we'll go from there. A quick question on Grimes. He's rated like one of the top 5 DBs for the draft class. So for this year, he just didn't think he was going to go high enough,
I
or
don't think I don't know if that's I don't know. I mean, it depends on what list you look at. So Tony was a 5-star kid out of Virginia Beach. Dre Bly recruited him at UNC. He accelerated his high school, so he reclassified a year early, and he went to UNC, and they used him as an off-cover guy, and that's not his strength. So he's been there, I think, 3 years. He had some injuries too. But I don't think there's film to warrant, top 5 D back. It must be the site you're looking at is probably a little bit off when it comes to, corners for the 2023 draft.
like Yahoo had it, so did a couple of the draft guys, and even PFF has him rated really high.
Yeah, I just don't think there's.
They haven't
I mean,
updated it.
I don't think there's enough
Film.
for his dad to be like, to jump in the NFL. Honestly, right now, I do draft assessment. I haven't broken him down completely, but I did, just out of curiosity a little bit. I think he would be late, first round. He's got the size, but the way they played him was not to his strengths whatsoever. And, he's not an off coverage guy. He can play off, but he's not consistent off. You can't have, 8 to 10 yard cushions and look good. Because you get frustrated, you get a little aggressive, you come up a little bit too early, and you beat deep. If you stay in that bubble, everything's going to be completed in front of you, and it's going to be frustrating as well. So that's why he left. Is the way they were using him, and it's not Dre Bly's fault. It's just the way Gene Chizik sort of has that defense is so bad, and they're losing so many kids to the portal. And Mac Brown, I love him to death, but he won't get rid of Chizik. But the problem is Chizik in that system. So they went to A&M where he could play press. He could play a lot more aggressive. But no, if he had any sort of like draft 3rd, 4th round, I think he would have come out. But I don't see that. Like there's so many corners in this draft too that are good that I think he would slide and it would be a big mistake for him. So I think he wants a year in press, show off his skills and then try to get to that 3rd round grade and then get out of here.
Interesting. Very interesting. I was curious on that just because I had seen him in a lot of boards, but they may not be updated yet because they haven't finished. They're just finishing up the season. So, what was I going to say?
I'm looking it up right now just to see who. I mean, because I know Joey Porter. I know Joey Porter at Penn State is one. The kid at South Carolina, NFL, Kaylee Ringo, who everybody's like, oh my God, Kaylee Ringo sucks, and this segues into the Georgia game. Kaylee Ringo, 6'2" corner, runs like a sub 4.4. Christian Gonzalez from Oregon, Cam Smith is a kid from South Carolina, Clark Phillips from Utah is awesome. I just think he would get sort of caught up, dragged into the mid to late rounds. But yeah, Kaylee Ringo, like this is the funny part about everything. And Grimes got the same knock. I mean, UNC fans are always like, "Oh yeah, Tony, you can go. You stunk. You got beat every time." And it's the system you're playing in. So Kaylee Ringo is a guy that they kind of picked on in the game. Ohio State picked on him. And again, he's going against Marvin Harrison and he's going against Emeka Egbuka, who are both, tall, lanky wide receivers with great body control. And his job is to not let them beat him deep. Keep the play in front of him.
PFF has him as 17 now.
Yeah, and PFF, I love PFF.
17th corner. 17th corner.
So, and that's PFF.
Yeah.
So I mean, you could name probably who's the number 6 corner
for that. PFF has. PFF has 4, 5, 6. Joey Porter.
Okay, who's 5?
5 is Christian Gonzalez.
All right, those are all good. I'm trying to think of a crappy one. Who's 8?
8 is Garrett Williams from Syracuse.
I mean, not crappy, but a guy. Again, some of those PFF rankings don't translate to NFL as far as size and speed and skill and all that stuff. So I think Tony Grimes, from a size, speed, skill level, is probably higher than 17.
Yeah, because
But
like yeah, like the speedy guy from TCU, Hodges
oh
Tomlinson,
yeah, he's smaller as heck.
he's like he's in the top 12.
Well, he's going to always grade
But
out
he's
well,
too
and
quick. He can play cover slot, I guess. Yeah,
well, the other thing about PFF, I like PFF again. I'm telling you, I like PFF. It's fun. I love it. I love the analysis.
right,
Offensive linemen, graded out 72.2, and they go and look at the
right,
film and they see that. But the people looking at the film are not qualified people. It's a lot of GAs, a lot of kids who are learning how to evaluate film. So they'll go to them and say, okay, here's UNC. I want you to focus on the defense. I want you to do, this kid first. And I want you to break them down based on these things. And that's great. All of those parameters are awesome. But the person breaking it down, how do you know they have any idea what they're talking about? How do you know that Tony Grimes, gave up that completion because of Tony Grimes' inability to cover versus Tony Grimes, the
Here's our million
system?
dollar invention. You ready?
What's that?
Okay, because it's all over the. I don't know if you've heard of Chat GPT. You know what
Mm-mm.
that is?
Mm-mm.
Chat GPT is a artificial intelligence system that.
Oh, yeah. You told me about that yeah. Yep.
All right, so now imagine, like, how you talk about PFF puts in those parameters. So let's say Mike Farrell and Dave Schuman came up with, here are the parameters that you found, or you said over the time has been the the most likely to become, like, I don't know, a top cornerback, right? A Hall of Fame cornerback. And you developed all those main parameters, right? And you created a system on it. And then you had the ability to the artificial intelligence has the ability to watch the film and see if the player fits grades those parameters itself
Right.
and spits out your rating, and it'll be more accurate than anything over time. It'll be more accurate than anything me or you could come up with. Because once you create the parameters of a Hall of Famer, basically, like, certain things, the only thing it cannot do is the yet is up here, but eventually it'll do up here too, and that will make it like a more improved system. But you could do it off of their film once you create that, Mike, it'll
Yeah.
you'll have subscriptions that will be in the millions just to watch your and every player, and all you have to do is comment on it.
See, I don't trust AI though. I don't trust them with
You
my
shouldn't trust
eyes.
it. You shouldn't trust it
I just, I
because
mean,
it's
I
going to
just,
take. It's eventually going to try and render us useless. And
it's not going to. I mean, I'm one of those people who really thinks that, and this comes with scouting too. I think you need to
we need both.
really, you have to have people who know what the hell they're talking about. I'm doing PFF right now for corners, and I'm seeing number 2 and number 4 and number 5 and number 14, but I'm not seeing one. I
I
must
went.
have this.
I went
Oh,
to
I
the
got it.
big board. I went
I
to the
said
big.
it. Okay, I said it for 2020. I got
If
to
you
set
go
it
to
for
NFL
all three
draft,
draft years. Here it is. Okay, so Quinion Mitchell was number 1 from Toledo. Devin Witherspoon, who I think is a first rounder from Illinois, is number 2. Um, I don't see Grimes. I see Kalen King, number 17. Oh, you went to you didn't go into the actual individual player boards.
I went to the big board, and
Okay.
so the
Oh,
big
is that
board
the
had.
draft big board?
Yeah, so if you go to,
Oh,
it's actually confusing. If you go to under college, okay, and then I had to go a different way. I went college, and then I went NFL draft, and then I went
nah. So
the big
I know
board's
what
on the right side.
I know what you did. So the draft analysis there is done by a guy. I think his name is Mike Renner. Good
Oh
guy,
yeah,
nice
yeah,
guy.
Mike Byrne.
You
Yep.
know, but I don't know. I'm not saying bad things or good things, but I don't know his evaluation skills. Tony Grimes in the PFF corner listing. This is based on PFF grade, is the number 658 cornerback, 658 in the country. So based on PFF, that's horrible. That's awful. So how is he number 17 on the NFL draft board? So what I think they go by is the NFL draft board. First of all, I would like to be paid for stars. I would. In retrospect, I would like to be compensated for the star rankings that I've given to kids because JT Daniels stinks, right? JT Daniels is going to Rice now. He's on his fourth school, but he was a 5-star. He's number 3 quarterback in that class behind Trevor Lawrence, behind Justin Fields. He commanded a 7-figure NIL deal from West Virginia.
Oh, right, yeah.
Because of 5 stars. Tony Grimes, who's ranked 658 in the country in PFF, and again, I don't subscribe to PFF completely. That's not good. But he's 17th in the draft board because he was a 5-star out of high school.
Absolutely.
I'm telling you, those stars, those 5 and 4 stars, they impact these draft rankings exponentially until you get to their draft year, and then you talk to scouts and stuff who actually break down their film, and then it changes.
Yes, I think it's. I mean, look, was Bryce Young a 5-star for you?
Yep.
Okay. I mean, obviously he's proven to be obviously great.
Oh, he doesn't need to pay me.
Right. No, but how about I'm just going off of who they have right now. Doesn't mean it's going to change. But what was Will Anderson?
5.
What
he
was
doesn't have to pay me either.
What was Will Levis?
3. Now
What
he doesn't need to pay me either because 3's not going to do anything. So
how about Jalen Carter?
He was a 4. He doesn't.
Brian Brzezzi had to be 5.
He was a 5. He needs to pay me. Now Brian Brzezzi is a good player. He's a nice kid. Prayers to his sister and all that.
Yes.
Really great kid. Difficult story. But he's hyped because he was the number 1 player in the country. He was the number 1 player in the country for us in that class, 5-star. And so he's still living off of those accolades. And he's got good film. He's going to be a first rounder. But for him to be 5th, that's based on his 5-star ranking.
How about Peter? I can't imagine Northwestern guys 5-star, but Peter Skoronski.
He was a 4. He was a Army All-American.
Miles Murphy must have been a 4 or 5.
5. He was a 5, and
Quentin Johnson.
Quentin Johnson was a 4. He's originally committed to Texas and flipped to TCU.
Nolan Smith.
Now he's another one who owes me money. I love Nolan Smith, nice kid, right? 5-star, number 3 player in the country. But his film does not equal top 10 NFL draft. So that he can pay me money.
Tyree Wilson?
He was, I think, a 3. He doesn't owe me anything. He's unbelievable, and he did it on his own.
Yes. He is unbelievable. So, C.J. Stroud must be.
He was a 4. He doesn't owe me anything. I got two people who owe me money so far.
Too far, so yeah, we'll do 15. We'll do the first 15. This is probably a little old, but it's good enough. Cam Smith.
He was a 4. He doesn't owe me anything. He played above that.
Jordan Addison.
Jordan was a 3 out of Maryland. Went to Pitt, so he doesn't owe me anything.
Kaylee Ringo.
5. He owes me. He owes me.
Brian Branch.
Me a lot of money. Brian Branch was a 4. He doesn't owe me. I got 3 guys who owe me.
3 guys? That's not bad.
I would take, just 1% of their NFL earnings because they're all going to be first rounders.
And agents can't get 1% of their earnings now. Barely.
Yeah, I know. But I'm just saying, listen, these are good football players. Will Levis is the one that puzzles me the most. He's not a good football player. He's not a good quarterback. He stinks, and he's going to be drafted in the top 10 because he's got a cannon arm. And everybody's in love with his, intangibles. Anthony Richardson's on that list somewhere, probably top 30 from Florida. Yep. He's going to go in the first round too. He's not good either. Nice kid, like him a lot, but he's not
cannon
good.
Arm, that's why.
Yeah. So these kids, but most of the kids you mentioned are they're in line with their ranking and they earned it. Miles Murphy and Brzezzi, I think, is a little bit high, because of that 5-star ranking. Ringo for sure, is he was hyped like crazy out of high school. So, but it's also those kids in the portal, that owe me, if they're getting NIL deals.
5-stars that are in the portal, right, I have a much better chance if you were a backup than if you were a 3-star, right, of catching on.
If you're like Justin Flo is a great example. He's a 5-star.
Did he? think we lost Mike again. Mike was about to go into somebody, and then we lost him. Hey, Mike, you're in two places.
Hold on.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
yeah, I hear you fine.
So now I'm in the misty laptop camera, which doesn't look as good, but I'm on my laptop because my phone kept kicking me out for some reason. So, but yeah, a kid like Justin Flo, was a top linebacker in the country, top 5 player in the country, goes to Oregon, injured a couple of years, gets in the portal, instantly gets a ton of interest. He's landing at Arizona. He's going to get NIL money. He hasn't played to deserve a Power 5 offer, but he's getting one, and he'll get NIL. He should pay me some money.
I love this. I'd like to go down to we should do one podcast when we get to the draft and just do the top 60, so the basically 2 rounds worth. Us top 64, I guess, 2 rounds worth, and just see how many guys did you feel like they owe you money for their high.
Yeah, there's guys in the NFL right now that owe money. I mean, there's guys that were taken high in the. I'm trying to think of who. I mean, Kyler Murray owes me money. I mean,
was he a 5?
He was a 4, and we were the only ones who had him as a 4, and he blocked me on Twitter because of it. Because he's but we still had him in the top 50 in the country, but everybody had him as a 5. So maybe he doesn't owe me money, but he owes someone in the industry money because he was #1 pick overall. He's not good. He's a petulant little baby, but he's worth, $40 million a year now.
Yeah.
And that's because of the hype coming out of high school and transferring from A&M to Oklahoma, winning the Heisman there. Look at those Heisman winners, though, man. It's like, Baker stinks. Kyler stinks. They were both babies. They were both petulant. They were both problems.
Really?
The funny part is, all it takes is a phone call to somebody like me to save yourself a ton of money. Because I could tell you, there's kids in this draft that are absolute turds that you do not want. And the NFL does all their background checks. They go into, they talk to teachers at schools. They talk to janitors and security guards. They do, extensive background checks on them. And really all they need to do is, how was he during the 4 years of recruiting that you followed him? He was a turd. That's all it takes. Doesn't take all that money. But
that's so funny, dude. You know what's interesting about Kyler Murray? Would Kyler Murray, if he wasn't in Kingsbury's system, and he's always battling with Kingsbury in the silence, but if he wasn't in Kingsbury's system, would he even be able to operate?
He's a talented kid.
Oh no, athletically and
fast as hell. He would have to be in a system. Kingsbury's or not, he would have to be in a system where he can move around because it is so. I mean, he's legit 5'9.5". I mean, they list him 5'11", but he's so short that throwing in those angles, he's the height of Flutie. And Flutie had a lot of different arm angles to get the ball through, but he was also good outside the pocket, throwing through windows. So he'd have to be in an offense where you're throwing through windows. But I don't think it would matter because he's uncoachable. And so,
why is he uncoachable? Why? What is he so good so early? Is that why?
Yeah, he thinks
high school player.
Yeah,
by far.
He never lost a game in high school. He was at a program. I won't name him, but you can Google it.
No, I know the pro. Yeah.
That completely coddled him and thought it was the greatest thing to ever live. He was told he was the greatest thing to ever live. He was also a big-time baseball prospect.
Yes.
He's juggling between first-round baseball, first-round football, millions of dollars being thrown at him. He was pre-NIL, but he would have made a ton of money in NIL. But some kids are just jerks. I mean, just arrogant, defensive, finger-pointing, blame everybody else jerks. We see it in the NFL all the time, and it's pretty clear. I've seen 3 primetime games, Arizona this year. One, he was injured, so they didn't talk about it. But the entire discussion leading up to the game was an hour-long discussion about his attitude. And it was Steve Young and RG3 and all these other guys talking about, this, that, and the other. And they put the clause in there that you had to watch X amount of hours of film.
Yep.
And then they said that clause wasn't in there. Of course that clause was in there because he doesn't prep, he doesn't care. And whenever he loses, he blames everybody else. And that's just the way he's raised. I mean, that's just life. It's just personality. I mean, listen, I'm not a mentally stable human being. I'm defensive. I'm egotistical, narcissistic. I got a lot of problems, but nobody's putting me in charge of a team. I'm not a leader. I'm not a guy that you have to follow, like this guy's supposed to be a leader and he's not.
Oh God, I think I just had a heart attack. I guess it takes one to know one. Is that it?
A little bit. I mean, yeah, I'm a little salty for sure, but I just know 9 times out of 10, if a kid really is focused on himself and what he means, and this comes from rankings, this comes from attention, this comes from all-star games, this comes from everything is me for 4 or 5 years through the recruiting process. 9 times out of 10, you're not going to be a good fit down the line. But I mean, you can't argue the success. Number 1 pick overall in the draft, Heisman Trophy winner, went to the playoff. I mean, he's successful. The problem is you can't build a franchise around guys like him or Baker Mayfield, right? Because nobody likes them. They're good and they're amazing, but nobody likes them and no one's going to play for them. So that's where they made the mistake, is investing in him as the future of their franchise.
Quarterback that has become, and it's definitely like the Mike Farrells and Dave Schumans of the world that have, I guess, going back to all our recruiting stuff, that have potentially caused the problem, right? Going to all the years of saying, this guy's the best guy, this guy's the best guy, this guy's the best guy. And these guys are the best guys every time they go to each thing they go to. There's no doubt. Like, you see them, and among the very good guys, they're the best guy, right? I remember when Kyler Murray came as a freshman to our event. The Coach Johnson calls me up and he goes, I just want to tell you this before you see the cards and stuff. I don't want you to get upset. We're giving the overall MVP, top quarterback, blah, blah, to a 5'5" guy. He is by far the best guy ever that we've ever seen. It was Kyler Murray. Okay. Mm-hmm. It was Kyler Murray. And he was in 9th grade. He was already starting already as he was 5'5" or something like that, or 5'6" at the time. And he actually grew 3 inches, but he was like incredibly small. And they called me up because they would only do that if it was like they were going to give an award to some guy that absolutely, like, I would see the card and be like, how is this guy, what I'm saying, the MVP? And they called me up and I'm like, if he's the best guy you've ever seen, it was Kyler Murray. They're like, we've never seen anything like this, like he ran some ridiculous 40 and then he was firing the ball, just like you see now, except that in the NFL, everybody runs a 4.5 at defensive end. So you do that enough, you're going to get sacked. You're going to get hurt.
But it's how you handle it too. I mean, because you're talking about Kyler Murray and what a great player he was, and he was considered one of the all-time best high school football players ever, and undefeated and all that stuff.
Right.
And then there's Tate Martell, who was also in that conversation as an undersized quarterback. Bishop Gorman never lost a football game. But it went to his head, and he turned out to be crappy. And then there's Trevor Lawrence, who it never went to his head. Yep. Always kid, always humble, always this, that, and the other. And now he's going to win Super Bowls. I mean, the Jaguars are going to make the playoffs this year. The first year with Urban Meyer was a disaster.
Yep.
Just didn't allow him to grow. Now you see the growth. They're going to put talent enough around him where he's going to win Super Bowls, and it's clear that he's going to. And Kyler Murray is going to be – Kyler Murray is the type of kid – he's got a rehab now on an ACL. He's not going to want to do that either. He's going to do that half-ass. And I don't know if he's ever going to be the same again, or maybe he'll just go and collect money and play baseball or something. But it just depends on how you handle it. The accolades can make you a monster. Like when you got guys telling, this kid in 9th grade that he's the best they've ever seen, but people were telling Trevor Lawrence that too, and he didn't turn into, a petulant kid. So I think it's upbringing. Bryce Young, his dad was a nightmare. That was a nightmare. He was a helicopter dad. all over everybody. Finally, in his senior year, his wife, sat him down and said, "You got to stop. You just have to stop. This is enough." Because he was up our butts about it. We had him ranked as the number 2 player in the country, and that year it was Brian Brzee was number 1, and then it was a debate between Bryce Young and DJ Uwongalele as to who number 2 and 3 were. His dad was up our asses every second, and he was just constantly up everybody's ass, and he was a helicopter crazy, and the mom just said, "Settle down." And the kid was a great kid. And the dad settled down, the kid settled down. I mean, the kid could have been one of those portal kids. He could have jumped out. He didn't play. Remember, his freshman year, Mac Jones was, and he won the job. And he could have just jumped. And he didn't, because the dad settled down, the kid settled down. Now, when I watched him, in the Sugar Bowl, talking about why he played in the Sugar Bowl when he didn't have to, and he just declared for the draft today because he's probably going to be the number 1 pick. If he's not, something's wrong. Now he's the best representative of college football you could possibly have. Classy kid, great kid. Dad settled down, kid settled in, didn't become a problem. And any NFL team that called me and said, what would you say about Bryce Young? I would say Bryce Young was undersized, always had a chip on his shoulder, always wanted to prove everybody wrong. Worked really hard, handled it the right way, and his dad settled down, and now he's an adult that I would build my franchise around in a second. And I wouldn't have said that coming out of high school because of the dad.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a good. I think a lot of it has to do with you're right, how they handle the early fame. That's a big thing. Like, how that is handled becomes a differentiator as when they get to be older. Because look, we know this. Like, eventually you're going to reach guys that are on your level. For some of them, it's not till the NFL, but some of them it's in college. Eventually, you're going to reach guys that are on your level, and if your attitude is not to handle things the right way, that's when you start your performance changes, your relationships change, and all that kind of stuff. But look, Kyler Murray is so good that it took till the NFL for this to be really become an issue. But eventually it becomes eventually you're going to run into, some of the guys are so talented that it takes to the NFL. Some guys, it happens in college and you're like, wow, they were a 5-star and they just can't handle whatever it is. And they walk in and a 4-star somehow is as good as them from working hard or whatever, a 3-star. And they're like, wait a minute, this guy was rated lower than me. How is he as good as me? And they can't handle it. And they don't compete in the same way they used to. I think that's so, I think it's so interesting. It's like a complete dynamic because it more than anybody else because you've just analyzed it. It's such an interesting thing. Like, I always laugh when people say, oh, they rated him wrong, or they, like, this guy shouldn't have been a 5-star. He ended up not paying out. What it is like the only thing that you guys you're not going to spend all your time with is here. So you're rating on ability and what you see and the little them. You don't know them that well. But what people never will understand is that, like, I'm not sitting down with the 3-star and how hard he works every single day. And well, maybe he's such a hard worker. And so I saw an interesting thing on, I think it was, he was the punt returner for Texas Tech, not Edelman. He played many years in the NFL. It was a unbelievable punt returner for Texas Tech.
Amendola? Is it Amendola? No,
played with the Patriots. Wesley Welker.
Wesley Welker, that's right. Yep, Wes Welker. Yep.
And you look at Wes Welker, and he basically opened the door for the Berrioses of the world, right? To be able to play in the NFL. I mean, I guess you could say that Wayne Corbett maybe began the opening of it, but then Wes Welker's really the guy that is the signature guy. And I was watching the whole thing on him. He was great in high school. He was out of this world. And Texas Tech was like the one offer he had. And then Mike Leach said, he said, my only fear is the NFL, that they'll never give him a chance to show what he could do. Because if you don't see him play, it's very hard. You just look at him and he's just, he's built nice, but he's 5'9", 100.
Yeah, small.
small guy, right? So, and he's not going to run a 4.4 and a 4. If he ran a 4.2, well, that he'd be Tyreek Hill, and that's why part of what Tyreek Hill's allure is. But he didn't run he was like a 4.5, 4.6 guy, and so what was so interesting was that after he got put on a practice squad, they then offered him an opportunity. I can't remember if it was the Chargers or whoever it was, but the next team that he went on, he got on because somebody got hurt or whatever. They put him on as a punt returner. Next thing you know, a kicker goes down. He's kicking the the field goals.
Yeah.
Extra point,
I think it was the Chargers. Yeah,
he was running down and making the tackle. And Bill Belichick saw him one time that year, was like, this guy was incredible. When he got the opportunity, jumped on him, and the rest became history. But it's interesting how you don't know, like, we don't know what's in Wes Welker that like allows him to keep pushing. But what I thought was the interesting mental thing that he said was when he was on the practice squad, and the practice squad, you could get like picked up or whatever. He said the guy said to him, we could put you on a practice squad over here and pay you like X more if you come over here. And he was like, I'm there. Like, his whole thing was like, wherever he was going to get a more opportunity, and they gave him if they gave him a couple extra bucks more to do it, whatever gave him the opportunity, he didn't care. He didn't care if it was $5 more. He just wanted the opportunity. And that mindset was like, if he ever does, someone like that ever does get the opportunity, they're going to like run through the door and take it. Now, there's a lot of guys that don't have the ability that Wes Welker has. That's the thing where people get mistaken. Like, I'm this good. Well, are you Wes Welker, right? I mean, Wes Welker's a different mindset. And I would say this, he holds the NCAA record for kick return yardage and touchdowns. Like, so it's not like he wasn't good. He was great. He just didn't have measurables that they thought. So if you're not great first, if Wes Welker was, I don't know, an average 9 yards of punt return, he wasn't even going to get the chance to show himself. So that people put the cart before a horse, and you've seen this more than anyone. Like, first, be great. Then, you got to get to the point where you're great. Then we could start addressing if you're, you deserve an opportunity, all those kind of things, and what your mindset is. But if you're not great first, none of it all matters. And I think that's what's so interesting about. There's a thing, and you probably saw it, where the 63% of the 5-stars were drafted, I think, or 63% of the first round draft picks were 5-stars or something like that. Right. So going to what you said, I have to get the exact stat because I saw it the other day. It was so profound, meaning if you get rated a 5-star, no matter what happens, you're at minimum going to get many opportunities. And this is what you talk about where they owe you money. They're going to get a minimum, a lot of opportunities to show what they can do.
Right.
And if they're good, they're probably going to get taken in the first few rounds, no doubt, and probably have a great chance to be a first rounder. I don't know. I mean, it's very interesting to me, the whole, when you guys shaped that thing long ago. Like, I remember, because I started 2005, so you guys are maybe 10 years in, not many years in at that.
Like 8 years in, yeah.
So it was very new. So like when people would talk about 5-star and all that stuff, like, we never really understood down the line how big being a 5-star was and the opportunities that you would have if you ended up being that good. We didn't know. Like, I don't know if you knew. I don't know if you thought back then. I mean, I don't know if you could take me through the thought process, but now you're seeing back, like, you can really get real stats from it. Real statistics of 5-star, 4-star, 3-star. There is no 2-star anymore, but even the 2-stars from back in the day, like how far guys went, how they didn't go, that kind of a thing.
It started around 2010, 2011 or so when I started to see the correlation between the star rankings and the NFL draft. So we started doing, sort of a breakdown after each draft of how many kids in the first round were 5, 4, 3, 2 or unranked. And I started noticing it's the 4 and 5 stars, I think, is the number. Like 63% of the first rounders are, 4 4 or 5 stars, and it depends on the draft. But when you think of kids, you think of, players that you watched this past weekend. I could rattle off their star ranking pretty easily as to whether they're, elite players or not. Joe Burrow's playing tonight. He was a 3. He ended up being the number 1 overall pick. Josh Allen's playing tonight. He was not. He was a 2-star. Went to Wyoming. But then you think about the rosters. Jamar Chase. He was a high 4-star. Stephon Diggs was a 5-star. Joe Mixon was a 5-star. And you start digging into the rosters and you start seeing some of the teams building around these players. So the correlation, but I really, really started to notice the correlation between 5 stars and the draft when people started projecting drafts years in advance. It used to be, okay, here's a mock 2023 draft. And no sites had 2024, no sites had 2025. You see out there mock 2025 drafts now where kids are freshmen. You'll see a mock 2026 draft based on the 2023 class. I mean, there's a mock 2026 draft out there where Arch Manning's the number 1 pick in the draft, because of his ranking.
Right.
And what happens is when those draft lists occur so early, then they exist for so long that when you start getting closer to the 2026 draft, you start looking at those. And so a kid like an Arch Manning will be on there, and he's not a great example because he's such a big name, but a kid like a Kamani McLean, who still hasn't decided on the school, but he's the number 1 cornerback in this class. He's on some idiot's 2026 mock draft, to the Raiders, the 8th pick. Now, we have no idea what pick the Raiders are going to have in 2026. We have no idea if this kid's going to be any good. He hasn't played a down of college football, but he's there. And then each draft you'll see. And I started seeing kids that really sucked in college, that weren't very good, that were 5 stars, that kept populating these drafts. And maybe not sucked, but Deshaun Hand's a great example. He was our number 1. Myles Garrett was our number 2 in the 2014 class. And I kept seeing he went to Alabama. He was a sort of a depth player. He moved to defensive tackle, and he was always in the rotation, but he never started. He was behind like Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, some first-round guys. But I kept seeing Deshaun Hand, top 20 pick in the NFL draft. And every year, he never really got better. And he ended up, I think, in the 4th round to the Lions, and I think he's out of the league now. Every year, I kept seeing him in the top 20, and I'm like, this makes no sense. And it was based on his high school ranking, and that was it. So that's when I started noticing that these people who do these mock drafts, that the non-professionals, they just throw star rankings into these drafts, and the kids get momentum that way. So then all 32 of those NFL teams see this.
Yes.
And then they have to do extra research on the kids. Like, what are we missing about Hand? Let's go back to his high school years. He was a defensive end. He moved to defensive tackle. Playing for Alabama, he's really good. He's won a national championship. Maybe he's a guy. And he was probably drafted. Byron Cowart's another example. He was our number 1 player 1 year. He went to Auburn. He was horrible. Went to Maryland, had 1 good year. He ended up being drafted, I think, 3rd round. And it was all because of the high school stuff and the fact that he was on those lists so much that somebody said, well, there's something here. I'm not seeing it on film, but there's something here I'm missing. I'm going to take them. And that's why they owe me money, because they should have really probably not been taken. So that's when I started seeing around 2010, 2011, but really into that 2014 class, it started getting crazy.
Well, one of the interesting things, having been on the agent side of it with the NFL draft with rounds 5, 6, and 7, they will take chances on the flyer FCS guy that ran a 4.40 and the not panned out 5-star, right? The guy who did. So you see those, like if you were a 5-star and you can make it all the way through and manage to play somewhat, you're probably going to have you're definitely getting into a camp. Definitely. There's no doubt. Like, unless you're like a criminal, beating women or, one of those things, like, and you didn't play, you're going to get into a camp, and you're probably going to have a chance to even get back late drafted. I used to see those guys go all the time. It was the same reason we used to be like, if we would filter the tight end list by 6'5" or bigger, right? The guys that were in it. We didn't care if they played at Division II. If they were 6'5" or bigger, we knew they were going to get in a camp, we knew they may not get drafted, if they went to FCS or Division I, but we knew we could get those guys in the camp. And invariably, when it got to like 6th or 7th round, they would be calling me up. They'd be like, "Hey, Dave, where's so and so going? He hasn't been drafted. He hasn't been drafted. Okay, well, we're going to offer him a free agent deal. Let us know if And you get a few offers from him. He would get like a signing bonus, like a decent signing bonus, because he was literally 6'7", 6'6", 6'8". And they always say what's the worst thing that happens with a tight end that is just become a blocking guy? They try him at left tackle. You're going to be in the league for 3 years bouncing around. There's no doubt. Like if you're 6'7" and you're 250 pounds, and for some reason you're not a good enough tight end, they're going to be like, you know what, bulk him up. The agent's going to say, hey, bulk him up. See if you can work at left tackle. And worst that happens, he's your practice squad guy for 3 years, and then he goes off. But I've seen these things like
the hype
happen.
It's the hype. I was looking at real quick Tony Grimes' class. He's the number 24 player in that class for us. And there's guys in this class. Willie Anderson was number 22 in that class, and obviously he's going to be top 3 pick and such. Jackson Smith and Jigba, Bijan Robinson. I mean, some really, really good football players in here. But a guy like Julian Fleming's a good example. So he's their number 3 receiver at Ohio State. He never really panned out. He was ESPN, I think, had him as the number 1 player in the country that year over Bryce Young and DJ Awongalele, or maybe top 5. He's 6'3", he's 210 pounds. He's going to get a chance, and he's done really nothing at Ohio State. But he'll get an extra look over a kid maybe at the Group of 5 level or FCS level who put up crazy numbers and was a starter for 4 years. He'll just get an extra chance. Elias Ricks at Alabama was the number 1 corner in that class, ahead of Kaylee Ringo. He's going to get a lot of chances. Eric Gilbert, who was at LSU and then transferred and has had some off-field issues and mental health issues, and he was at Georgia. Now he's back in the portal again. He's going to get another chance because he's a 5-star and so talented. So they just get a little bit of a leg up. And sometimes that's all you need. But I think there's too much emphasis put on the star rankings when you're talking about the NFL because, again, no offense to some of these kids that I'm looking at in this class, they didn't pan out. They didn't have the careers that you expected, and they're going to be overdrafted because of it and drafted higher than they should be. And maybe it'll work out. I don't know. Sometimes it does. Sometimes
it can work out.
I mean, look at Diggs. Diggs is a good example. He didn't have a bad college career, but he broke his leg. He had 5 different quarterbacks in 1 season at Maryland. He had the worst coach on earth in Randy Edsall. He dropped to the 5th round. We all knew he was enough a talented kid. Like, he was almost my number 1 player in that class. That was the Dorial Green Beckham class. He was number 8. Circumstance led to a bad career at Maryland. I should have stayed home, but he did it for his mom. And now he's one of the top 3 wide receivers in the NFL. So, sometimes you can have a bad situation in college and not live up to the hype and succeed. But sometimes you can go off to college, not live up to the hype, get overdrafted too high, and then be out of the NFL in 2 years. So I think the star rankings are too much, but that's what's happened. They put together these dumb mock drafts, the top 2026 draft lists way ahead of time. And then they don't budge off of them. If a kid stinks, he has 2 bad years or average years, they'll keep him there because of that star ranking. And I don't know, it just leads to mistakes. NFL teams fall for this stuff, and it surprises me because they're not supposed to be looking at high school rankings. Bucky Brooks, who's the NFL.com draft analyst, he does a high school ranking. He started doing it like 10 years ago, and I think he falls for it. I think if you're really tempered to look at these kids as high school kids and not able to disseminate how they actually played in college, you're going to fall into this. And I try to make sure every time I do an NFL draft analysis, I do not base it on what they were coming out. They're different human beings now, but a lot of people don't do that.
Right. And it's very, very interesting stuff. I mean, like, wildly interesting. I want to talk about one thing, and it's a big thing, before we get off, because today's been an amazing discussion. the two games,
Yeah.
I, the second game I have a lot more commentary on than the first game, I guess. The first game I thought Jim Harbaugh got cute early and basically, that first drive they went for the little razzle dazzle instead of just scoring, right? And got cute early, and then they got behind, and a couple things didn't go their way, and they just could never make it up. At TCU's speed, there's been a lot of talk about their speed, right? And like I said, there's this whole thing on they have a speed training program within. They're one of the I'm sure Oregon has it because of Nike, but they're one of the first programs to focus on football as a speed sport, not trying. Remember how I don't know if you know about this, but the coaches used to try to bury you in the winter workouts, and it was workouts, but it was like basically testing your mental toughness. You know what I'm saying? Same thing in the summer. But TCU has had like a meticulous speed development thing where it wasn't so much about what being in the greatest shape in the world, but how fast you can become. And I saw that difference in the Michigan game. Even though Michigan had, to me, the better team, these big plays were killing them. They could not stop TCU. And Harbaugh, I think, thought he was and Michigan thought they were better, and they could do some of these cute things and fool TCU, but TCU's speed was better than them. And then all of a sudden they were far behind. They tried to be cute instead of running right at them and just going right at them. And what he's always done and winning the game. And he had I think his quarterback is fantastic. I just thought they were shocked by TCU, in my opinion, and did things that they didn't need to do. And then all of a sudden they couldn't make it up later in the game.
Yeah, and I think if they had Blake Corum, it would have helped a lot because the 1-2 punch, they had Donovan Edwards, who's really good, and he started off the game with like a 58-yard run. And you're right, they got cute down in the goal line, which was dumb. I mean, you just got to – if you're going to impose your will on a team, you just pound it at them and make it their will break. And, to give them a break with a Philly special, down near the goal line, it's just dumb. And that's coaches overthinking things, and you get away from your game plan. But TCU is one of those teams. They just have a rare blend of playmakers. I think Duggan is just, he doesn't get a lot of NFL love, but he's just a gamer. He's one of those guys who has so many intangibles that it's hard to really, check that box. Because people don't like to do that. His arm, his accuracy, blah, blah, blah. Quentin Johnson, the guy who made a lot of those big plays that you're talking about, is the number one wide receiver in the draft and just doesn't look as fast as he is. He's huge. And then you get out in space with him, and the angle they took on that long touchdown catch, that the corner came up, and he's like, okay, this guy's 6'4", he's 210 pounds. This is the angle. And he just sidestepped him and went right past him and outran everybody. You don't expect that, I don't think. But Michigan kind of got away from what they do, because they fell behind and they put themselves in that hole. Harbaugh's a good coach. It was a good game. It's fun to see TCU, first-year coach, losing team last year, not a blue blood, going to the title game. The second game was, to me, a great job by Ryan Day coaching, and he's going to get slammed because he lost to Michigan twice in a row. Now he's lost in the playoff 3 times. But they didn't have Jackson Smith and Jake, they didn't have Trevion Henderson. Their running back, they were on their 4th-string running back. Then they lose Cade Stover, their tight end. Then they lose Marvin Harrison Jr., their best wide receiver. And they're still a field goal away from beating a Georgia team that doesn't give up 41 points. They just don't. And they did what they wanted with him. C.J. Stroud's development has been astonishing. He looked as good as he's ever looked in that game. Day does a great job with that team. But yet Georgia, they just kept pounding away. And Ohio State gave them some opportunities. And they made big plays when it counted. That hit on Marvin Harrison Jr., people saying it's targeting, blah, blah, blah. It was a legal hit. He hit him below the head. He didn't lead with his crown. And he knocked the crap out of him, which is what football's supposed to be. You go across the middle, try to catch a touchdown pass, I'm going to knock you senseless. and you're out for the game, and it's going to change the game, and that's what it did. So Georgia impressed me less than Ohio State impressed me, and Ohio State lost. I was really impressed with what I saw from Ohio State.
Yeah, I thought so. Harbaugh, he is a fantastic coach. I think on the TCU thing, I just think TCU two things. I thought their offense, they run the whole spread thing, but are you familiar with Bixby High School in Oklahoma? They're like the top
Yeah.
program.
Yeah.
They run like a single wing where they do the motioning and they do the shifting, and TCU has like some elements to it where it's this. You don't know all the time where the ball's going, and then Max Duggan's running it. You know what I mean? He gets like a 3-yard free run before anyone sees him. And I thought it was interesting how Sonny Dykes runs that offense. He uses like some of these little things that are very difficult that you wouldn't think would work in college, but they're wrinkles that just do, you know. And but with Ohio State and Georgia, I thought for 4 quarters until the last minute of the game, Ryan Day completely outcoached Georgia. Now, he had some moments where he called that timeout at the right time. Thought he was great with his timeouts. Kirby Smart. He did a fantastic job with that. I think I think his structure. This is from being with Nick Saban. Like he's taken that to a whole nother level. Like he understands the structure of the game, how it's going to run, you know. But Ryan Day, he fired all the cannons, and he had guys go out, and they were in position to win that game. I thought 2 things. Georgia, I think, needs to run the ball more. Like I thought they could have ran for Akers early on. They really were throwing early on and I think they
I don't know why.
I don't know.
I think they could have run a lot more too.
And I think Stetson Bennett is one of the greatest stories in college football. I think he's a phenomenal competitor. I don't think he's a phenomenal quarterback. I don't know if that makes sense. Phenomenal competitor, not a phenomenal quarterback. He makes plays because he's got a good arm and he can run, but he's a competitor. He does some things that are pretty amazing. But I don't like when they try to put it in his hands early on. I thought it was a mistake. Run the ball, and then Stetson will be able to come out, which relying on Stetson to do it all, I thought was a mistake and almost cost them in the game because I think they have the better team. I thought flat out they had the better team, especially up front where it's really important. They had the better team. On the edges, I thought C.J. Stroud obviously was the better guy, and then the receivers until they started getting hurt one by one, and they got hurt because Georgia guys were that good. Their guys were guys, you know. Their guys are the better players, the tougher players. And I think in the national championship game, my guess is Kirby Smart's plan is to try to out-physical TCU, and they won't be able to run by Georgia guys in the same way that they could run by some of the Michigan guys. Not that they were slow, but I think Georgia just has a little more speed. And if he does that, it's going to be a tough game for TCU. But if he does what he did here, you know, offensively, and leave it in Stetson Bennett's hands, I think you're going to have a game.
Yeah, well, also, you know, all these Big 12 teams so far this season, you know, and now Michigan have tried to game plan for TCU, and they've come up with 85 different ways to try to stop them. And every time somebody on TCU makes a big play, whether it's Miller or Duggan or Johnson or somebody you don't even know about, like I forget their second receiver's name, he's super fast, and you know the backup running back can make a big play, and the defense comes up with timely turnovers, and you game plan. I mean, they're 13.5-point favorites over TCU in the championship game. That's 2 touchdowns. It's crazy. And every time I think somebody's got TCU figured out, they just don't. And I know Kansas State kind of did, but had they not, I mean, TCU had them, and they decided, I forget, they took the ball out of Duggan's hands on 2 straight plays down near the goal line.
Yeah.
Had they done what they've always done, which is a little misdirection or you know, run pass or even his own read, he's in the end zone. And I don't know, you know, that's coaches thinking too much. This team is just hard to figure out. So We'll see. I mean, they're going to try to run it down their throats. They're a 3-3-5. They're not
and they're multiple in it. So they'll have 4 guys down. They'll have 5 guys down. Like they mix it up so much with their 3-3-5. It's just it's tough. Like you could score on them, but then they get the pick to the house. You could score on them, and then the defensive end picks up who's their star All-American linebacker. He makes all the. I can't believe I've slipped my mind.
Well, they got the kid that transferred from Navy, Hodges, who's really, really good and makes a ton of plays as well. It's just somebody will step up, somebody will make a play, and again, Michigan was in there to try to overpower the 3-3-5, and the first drive it looked like they were going to. I mean, the first play of the game, Edwards had a holder run through and goes for 58 yards. You're like, uh-oh, this team's too small. And they rely a lot on stunts and motions and
athletic. D. Winters is the guy I was thinking. D. Winters is
Oh yeah, he's awesome. He had the big play as well. And so, but what they do is they try to keep the linebackers clean. You got to be sharp tackling in space. But even if they give up points, they're always going to be able to come back and score. They've been down 10 plus points, I think 5 times this season, and no one can put them away because they're just pesky and relentless. So Georgia's going to try to do the same thing. I think they're going to try to come out, be physical, run the football down their throat, wear them down. But then when TCU doesn't go away, all of a sudden you start changing your game plan a little bit. You start thinking this is like I thought. I think it's going to be a close game. I have Georgia, repeating, which is the first time since Alabama, like over a decade ago, to repeat. But it's going to be a really good game. And I would have preferred Michigan, Ohio State in a rematch. That would have been awesome. But they both just fell a little bit short against teams, I think. I don't know. I mean, Ohio State, I blame the depth. Not the lack of depth, but losing so. You can't overcome a Heisman candidate at running back, a Heisman candidate at wide receiver, then another Heisman candidate at wide receiver. It was like Alabama last year when Jamison Williams went down in the first quarter.
Yeah.
How many injuries can you overcome as their wide receivers? TCU, man, I just can't figure them out. I don't know. I don't know. I love to see them win. I'm not supposed to, but I'm going to be rooting for TCU just because this is what it's all about. It's about the underdog. It's about, it's Sonny Dykes. I don't know. It's just, we'll see. 13.5, I would take TCU to cover that, but I with you, I got Georgia winning unless they get dumb. But what are we over? We're over an hour, right?
We're up. Yeah. No, let's wrap it up. I can't wait to see that game. And I'm like you. I mean, I love Georgia, but I got to root for the underdog just because it makes it way more fun. There's no doubt about it. I mean, Georgia's a great team. My football campsite, listen, it's been on the screen the whole entire time. Where's my pointer? Oh, here we go. Down here. And you just check it out. Obviously, you can DM us on social media. I put that up earlier. I'm at Coach Schuman. You're at what?
Farrell Sports, at Farrell Sports.
Yep. So, here it is. Boom, there it is. So check that out. And then I'll see you next week. Great talk. Reach out to us. We want to get you guys in a position to be able to get recruited. Just listening here, you see the knowledge of what the process is, and you want to leverage it. That's what you need to do. You need to leverage the opportunity. Don't be afraid. Fear holds people back. Take advantage of the opportunity like the guys who are in our program now are doing, and they're reaping the benefits. Any final thoughts?
No, man. This has been a good one, and we'll talk to you next week.
You got it.